to a very special day of the Up and Downs. I am Wolf, with me is KangHo. We have a cool group. We also have a foreigner. It's the very first time Grubby will be playing in the GSL studio.
It's going to be really exciting to have him here in Korea and to see him participate in the GSL. Now he has a shot to go to Code S, as have all the other players here. Once again, we introduced a bit of a new system. This time we have a wildcard. The third place finisher will go through a wildcard group that's being played on Friday, and the top two of this group are going to advance to Code S as well.
Yeah, you know, Grubby is going to have a pretty tough group ahead of him here, but the same can be said of all these other players.
That's definitely true. We have a very stacked group with 3 top Zerg players, we have 2 Protoss players and a Terran. We are of course going to have a look at them later on, but you're so right. The main contenders in this group, probably 2 Zerg players with DRG and Symbol.
I think so too. I mean, I would put them as the better ones myself as well. But Grubby has a good chance. One of the things to talk about Grubby is, you know, since he's never played in Korea before, he's trained here before, but he's never played on televised matches. It's a little bit harder for these players to say. They have to look up other European tournaments to find VODs. They're out there, but it's a little bit more difficult. In fact, we ran into one of the Korean casters on the train, and he said it was the first time he'll ever have seen Grubby played, and I think that's going to be the case for a lot of Korean fans. Yeah,
we have, of course, players like Symbol that were at Home Story Cup where Grubby played the last time, so Symbol was actually talking to Grubby a little bit, and it was really interesting, because Grubby mentioned when he was staying at my place that Symbol struck him as an opponent who really prepares a lot. He realized that he was talking to Symbol just a little bit, and suddenly Symbol pointed a few things out to him that Grubby himself didn't realize about him, his own, not even his play, just about things that he did in general. And suddenly Grubby was like, okay, this is a guy who really prepares for his matches. I have to be careful.
Yeah, got to be really careful. Let's take a look at yesterday's results. We had a very bored Squirtle take a 4-1 lead and get the Code S spot. Teja not dropping a single map also gets Code S, and the third place wildcard spot goes to the newly teamless Shine.
Yeah, Squirtle, it took him 3 wins to get his Code S spot. The next 2 games didn't really matter to him, and it showed a little bit, I have to say.
Yeah.
Teja, on the other hand, but well, Squirtle, of course, he played simply amazing. I really loved his play, and so did Teja. Both of them really deserve this Code S spot, and Shine has another chance on Friday.
And of course, just to look at who's in Code S now, we do have 2 additional Protoss players to add to the list, making the race distribution 4 with MC and Squirtle joining the bunch. You can see Terrans, though, as usual, still the dominant force at 11 versus the Zerg at 9.
Yeah, Terrans struggling a lot in the second half of 2012, but now they have they found new strength, and in 2013 they are back and back with a vengeance. 11 of them in the next Code S season. 2 Protoss players were originally qualified with Great and Parting, but 2 more have been able to make it to the Up and Downs and get into Code S. And here are, of course, today's players.
Yep, we've got Lucira, the wildcard player. I mean, he's not going to get that wildcard spot necessarily. He's going to fight for it, but I feel like as a player in general, he's kind of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to expect. He makes a lot of banelings. He's very aggressive.
A lot of twitching.
Yeah, a lot of twitching as well. We've got first, someone who's actually done decently well overseas, but in the GSL so far, not even able to maintain a 50% win rate. Young, an up-and-comer. You've got Symbol, everybody knows him. DRG, the final boss, and last but not least, Grubby. No stats in the GSL. He is the seeded player for this Up and Down group, and I gotta say, I expect a lot from him.
Yeah, he's the player I'm most excited about. This is going to be a very tough group for him, and I actually have no idea if he has a chance here. He has been preparing a lot, and he told me earlier when he got the email that asked him, that just was the request by the GSL, hey, do you want to play in the Up and Downs? He said he immediately replied and booked the ticket within an hour. So he was really going to come to Korea. He's happy to be here. He's staying at the FXO house right now, is keeping up with that training schedule, is playing a lot of StarCraft, watching a lot of VODs, preparing for his opponents. But this is one of the toughest groups that we have in the Up and Downs. And the picture is actually so funny with him in the middle of these 2 main contenders, the 2 Zerg players, Symbol and DRG flanking Grubby.
He's just a European player. He's teamless. He's just Grubby. You see that there. I really like it.
Well, he's his own team. He's a very independent player, has individual sponsorships.
Yeah.
And is doing it really well. I think for him it's the perfect choice.
It absolutely is, man. And I'm really proud of what he's been able to accomplish, not only in Warcraft 3, but in StarCraft 2 already. StarCraft 2, a very new game still. Hard to believe, but it's true.
Coming from Grubby to our 2 LGIM players, we are starting things off here in the Up and Down group, of course, with the teammates. We are first against Lucira, and our first is Zerg versus Protoss. The map is Belcher Vestige. Lucira already with a weird angle on his keyboard. This is exactly how we know him and love him.
Yeah, that's certainly it, man. With his office cup, he probably got some coffee in there because coffee is back I don't have to experiment with teas anymore. I can just drink my coffee that I love, that I have here at the GSL.
Lucira is ready to twitch it up, and first, on the other hand, here is, of course, one of two Protoss players, Grubby being the second one. Let's see what he can do. This is a Zerg-dominated group,
yep.
and Protoss, especially in the late game, has been struggling against Zerg a lot. Will we see a two-way timing?
Yeah, you know, this is a map where it's really tough for our Protoss to take a third. And consider as well, one thing we haven't even mentioned yet, is this is our team kill match. LGIM versus LGIM. These guys practice together, live together. Who knows, their deaths might be right next to each other. So they have a lot of experience with each other. But the map is loaded. It is time for game number 1. Lucira versus First at the GSL Up and Downs, casted by Caldor and Wolf.
Starting to the top left is the LGIM Zerg player in red. It is the man with the twitch.
LGIM Lucira.
I'm just waiting
for it.
Look
at those
it.
fingers, man. That's the Lucira fingers, too.
There's so many VODs that show him and his movements on the keyboard. He is so fast. His opponent starts to the bottom right. He starts in yellow, a Protoss player for the same team for incredible miracle. It is
LGIM first.
Appropriate that he is in our first game here.
Introduced second, though.
Yes. Got to make some sort of compromise. It will be going for some sort of Forge-oriented expansion build since he has placed his pylon at his natural. And Lucira sends a drone to hide it in case he's blocked. And it looks like he wants to go hatch first based on that drone placement. But that's a really early drone, so he definitely wants to hatch first.
You know, you talked already about them being teammates, and what's really important here is that you surprise your opponent a little bit. They've trained with each other. You said it best when you mentioned they could have the desk right next to each other, talk a lot about strategies in this matchup. You can definitely assume that they know each other so well, and you have to surprise your opponent a little bit. Maybe take a risk that he doesn't expect. Maybe be a bit more aggressive than you usually are. And Lucira is starting here with the hatch first, something that you usually try to avoid doing against a Protoss player that opens up with a Forge, but first is starting with his Nexus.
Yeah, goes Nexus first here without even a scout. So Lucira lost a lot of mine time, actually. If you consider that was one of his first drones going down, that's like a 12th of his mine he lost. He kept it down there for a really long time. He's going gas before pool as well, so a very greedy build in some ways, because yeah, it's greedy that if someone went for a big pressure attack, you'd be in trouble. But at the same time, in this matchup, it's actually a safer way of playing, because you can get that speed out.
I'm really interested to see what first strategy is going to be, because I have the I actually think that right now he is a bit reluctant to play the late game. As a Protoss player, you're always reluctant to go into the late game against Zerg, of course, but a lot of Protoss players these days are trying to take the third base, trying to hit a 3-base timing, pre-Broodlord, or pressure the Zerg to an extent that he can't really go into this massive Infestor and Broodlord composition. And the reason why I think that First might go for a bit of a more aggressive play is that if you go down his match list, you see him against a lot of Zerg players, and he lost every single match. He lost against Su at MLG, he lost against Golden, against Revival, he lost against Linux, was smacked down by him at MLG Summer Championship with a 4-1. So recently, not a lot of success against Zerg. So with the map being Belcher Vestige, what do you think? 2-base timing for first?
That's what I'm thinking as well. I think we might see an Immortal push even. We have seen this new, well, it's not really new, but it feels new because people start doing it again. The Phoenix is into a 2-base attack coming back, especially in the up and down.
Stargate is becoming really, really popular again. One of the few players who never abandoned the idea of Stargate is, of course, MC, as well as Genius. I think we have to point out both of them here.
Very true.
But for now, First has all the options. One of the few players, one of the few Protoss players that we see taking a third map on this, third base on this map is Parting, of course. Lucira, on the other hand, is his job to scout what's going on. He's taking his third base, he's taking it 5 minutes. The early gas was pointed out earlier. This allows him to not only get the speed out, but also his tech. And
he doesn't start speed,
exactly.
though, interestingly enough. He mines 112 and he just leaves it there. It's almost like...
It looks like we have a LATEC.
Yeah, it looks like it's certainly going to be that. He waited until the probe was dead. He still hasn't started, but I think he will soon.
Speed a little bit delayed?
Yeah.
I really expected him to go into Lair because he was waiting for a long time after he had the 100 minerals and 100 gas, and when he hit the 150, I really thought we would see a fast tech from him. We don't see that. He's going into speed a little bit later than we originally assumed. But for first, we have kind of what we talked about. We have the Stargate now. It's becoming so popular You see a lot of players, Rain being probably the best example, using Phoenixes to an extent where it really pressures the Zerg player, takes the map control away from him, and just puts him back into a very defensive position.
Yeah, you're right. And we've seen a lot of players just do this. Phoenix opening into 7 gateways off 2 base and just go for the kill. That can be very scary because, you know, sometimes you wait and you get enough Phoenixes out to where they can really actually assist in the battle. Sometimes you do enough damage to where the Zerg player is trying to drone up heavily and then he doesn't have enough units.
What you always try to avoid when you open with Phoenixes is that they get fungled and killed, because they are very, very strong later on as well. The idea of the Phoenix is to early on pressure the Zerg player, take down Overlords, shut out scouting so that there are no information for the Zerg. Then you can always try to kill a few Queens, you can kill Harvesters, you can go for the Overlords as mentioned. But later on in the game, if you are trying to hit a timing and you still have your Phoenixes ready, you can lift Infestors. And this is so crucial if you're trying to hit a timing attack.
Yeah, it's extremely important in fact. Roach Warden goes down for Lucero, who's actually now supply blocked with 4 Overlords on the way. That's so many resources spent when you're kind of trapped into forcing. You get forced to make those, you know you're going to lose several more potentially when the Phoenixes arrive. You don't really have a choice. He has to start 3 spores. That's 3 drones gone, plus the minerals he paid to lose them. And the Phoenix is actually split up here. He wants to scout what he can find.
The positioning of the Spore Crawlers is also... I don't want to say weird, but it's different from what we usually see. Normally you have it closer to the mineral line so that you can protect your drones. What Lucera did is position it at the bottom of his own hatch. With the queens that he has, he should still be fine here. He has 4. And Protoss players these days argue a little bit about when exactly you are going to move out. Usually you waited until you had 4 Phoenixes moved out. You need 4 Phoenixes to kill a queen with a lift, which is exactly what we're going to see right now. But a lot of Protoss players went out with a 3 already because they say most Zergs go for 4 queens anyways, or 5 queens. So if I kill a queen, it doesn't really help me. Of course it's nice, but I don't stop their production. So going for Overlords and drones might be the better choice. And if you move out with 3 Phoenixes, it hits them a little bit harder, a little bit faster.
Yeah, and he's found the Lucero jackpot of Overlords here. Knows he's targeting down the ones with more hit points now because he knows he can easily get that last one, and he gets 3 of them
and
there.
Look, that's exactly what I talked about earlier, the positioning of the Spore Crawler.
And that's, normally you see players literally put their Overlords on top of the Spore. Lucero is at 81 out of 54. He just got another Overlord out. He's making 6. One just finished out. 5 more on the way. That's so many resources he has to spend. He's already lost 1,100 resources. And First is going into robotic support bait here.
He's going into the tech for Colossi, and now he's also losing drones. A great opening for First here. And the positioning of the Spore Crawler as... You know, it seemed a little bit irrelevant. It seemed like in the early game, okay, does that really make a difference? And yes, it does. And we've just seen why. Yeah. The Overlords were completely exposed, and he is still not done. He's still on the hunt.
He's killing a few more here. And notice as well, his Void Ray is perfectly timed with the Observer. That's not a coincidence. That means that he's going to go out and start clearing up the creep tumors, actually, with that Observer and the Void Ray together while he can on the edge. He's picking up drones. He's keeping the Queens occupied here so they can't deal with that Void Ray.
And very important, he's picking up the gas drones. This is what you always try to do, to make sure that the Zerg player doesn't have as much gas as he wants to have. This will delay his tech. It will also reduce the number of infestors you have to deal with later on. And maybe your opponent doesn't really pay attention, forgets to put the drone into the extractor. Sometimes we have the situation where he puts 4 in instead of 3.
Yeah.
All these small mistakes, it's something that you can force.
Yeah, it costs a lot more multitasking, for sure. Now look at this. First, because of all the Overlords he was able to kill, should be able to have enough units here to actually hold this off. It's not going to be easy, though, and he needs a pylon wall. It's a little bit too slow. His sentries were not at home. He had them at his 3rd and sets. The Lings are on the main base. This is the first small victory for Lucera in this game. He may even actually unpower these gateways. He definitely will.
Yeah, he will. He needs another pylon. He needs it fast. The warp in helps him to save his probes, but he definitely needs to power those gateways again. And first, what he did here was not go into Immortals first and also just get the Blink upgrade a little bit faster, but he went straight into the Colossi tech. So a bit of a difference here in play, and this left him not as flexible as he wanted to be. If he warped in a unit into the gap, that would of course have not been a big problem for him, because he was really set up very well. But now with those Links in the main base, this is horrible for him.
Yeah, he's still losing more and more warpins that he wants to be using, of course, to defend his 3rd base. And he doesn't even necessarily want to make Zealots, but he has to in this case.
Another Queen being attacked here. The Phoenix just getting away. But yeah, these Zerglings finally being cleaned up at the bottom right. They did so much damage. They threw the timings off, and they also killed a lot of Zealots.
You're right, and we have something very special here. It's a 3rd base for a Protoss on Belshire Vestige, and a Protoss who's up about 20 supply. in this matchup at the 13-minute mark. This is not a good situation for Lucira. He's lost so much. He can get himself back to this game with maybe a good fungal on the Phoenixes, maybe one good engagement in the middle of the map, but even his creep is not as far as he would want it to be, and he's going to lose more drones in his main base now. He just can't deal with these Phoenixes until the Infestors are out. They're about to be, though.
I love the micro here for first. He still didn't lose a Phoenix, and look how low they are on hit points. This is the best that he could get out of his Phoenix play, and this decision to move back now is just perfect. He knows that the Infestors are about to pop, and now he can use the Phoenixes later on, can lift Infestors. At this point, they did all that they had to do and a lot more.
Yeah, the resources lost 3,400 for Lucira, just 750 for first. I mean, it just goes to show how much these Phoenixes have really done, how well his defense was against the Ling attack at the third. The Lings got into the main, yeah, but he had his Nexus up, and he was like, that's fine, you lost all your Lings. He's going to see this fourth base to the right of the map. Does not yet see the gold base. I think this may be the first time I've seen someone actually take this gold base on this map. But he doesn't see the gold base just yet, but everything else is known to him.
You know?
Oh, he gets fungled. This is important.
Now he gets the fungal. We talked about this scenario earlier, and all those Phoenixes are going to die.
He needs to pull them back.
Can't use them later on. That's definitely a bit of a problem. It's very unlucky for him. But still, the Phoenixes definitely did a lot of damage, and now he finds himself in a great position. Think about the number of Colossi that we have on the map. 3, and the fourth one about to pop, and the Spire is just now done. So the timing is here really good. First could actually have moved out and attacked. He didn't know about it, but if he would have realized this, then he had a timing to move out and do a lot of damage before Corruptors are in the mix for the Zerg player.
Yeah, and I have to say, Lucira's really kicked his creep spread into high gear now. He's actually got it past the Watchtower. Initially, you know, he wasn't too focused on it, but now he's really spreading out there.
There was just way too much to deal with, so he was contained, and he could only spend his micro on trying to deal with those Phoenixes, but now suddenly it's like it's like the loose cannon. Lucira is spending creep tumors everywhere, 10 active at this point, and we have a fourth base for first.
Yeah, fourth base is up, and he's actually killing his own queens here to free up some supply, realizing he has a bit too many. Kind of a unique situation. Yeah. You don't see it often, but it does happen from time to time.
Both of them are maxed out here. The bank goes to first, and he's also moving out onto the map now.
Yeah.
Doesn't have an observer with his army.
This composition is so good for him. You know, even though there are some Corruptors here, there's enough Stalkers. Even the Void Ray and Archons are going to help out. He gets good bungles, but the Zealots are making a wall for those Lings, and now the Infestors in the back trying to drop as many Infestarans as they can, but they can't bungle anymore.
And another Colossus dies. The Phoenixes are moving back. The supply is still in favor. First he blinks forward, tries to take off a few units, and this gold base will not survive long.
Yeah, gold base is totally in trouble. It's actually dead already. He's got the Warp Prism and charge and +3 are about to line up here.
Look at this bank for first. 1,500 minerals. The gas, he's lacking in gas a little bit, but with the fourth base now being up, he has 8 extractors, assimilators already. Here comes Lucira trying to go in once again. Does he have enough? It certainly doesn't look like it.
He kills the Warp Prism. That means no more reinforcements, but the Archons and those Zealots are just closing this. They have +3 now. The Roaches +1 is not done yet.
This army is just not big enough, or is it? The Colossi are gone. He has to rely on the ground forces now. Those Stalkers could blink forward again and take down more of the Corruptors.
And you know, if that Warp Prism were still alive, I think this would have been a very different story. He would have had so many more units right at the front.
Also, really important, the bigger story here is we don't have a Hive Tech. We don't have a Hive Tech, we don't have a Great Aspire, and we have currently a Protoss player on 4 bases against a Zerg player on 4 bases. The tech for the Protoss is great. This is an awesome position for first.
Yeah, and he's cleared up a ton of that creep on the left side of the map as well. Something that's not extremely important in this case, but it is going to help him move from the left side of the map. He can start to attack at the natural if he wants to. Those Phoenixes at the top right are still alive and a little bit idle right now. I'd like to see him, you know, maybe lift some Infest with those in the main battle, but they're not too important. But he's spent all of his gas on Archons. He's actually going very heavy Archon right now.
He's going for 3 additional ones. Now we have 4, and this is a very beefy army. 24 Zealots, a lot of Archons in the mix, and then always a Colossus and a few Stalkers in the back.
Everything on +3 attack, and he goes in for the attack, and a great bungle on those Zealots, and the Archons actually can't close the distance.
But more and more Infestors are dying, and can those Roaches really stop this onslaught? There comes first, and he goes up the ramp. He's trying to take out Lucira here, and Lucira is struggling. He's ahead in supply right now, but the army is looking really great for the Protoss player. He has 2 Colossi in the back. There's not a single Corruptor left.
Nothing is left for Corruptors here. The Archons, you know, tried to target them. He had a little bit of hesitation. Those two Colossi now doing so much extra damage. Lucira is dropping in supply. He does not have the bank that First does to replenish his army. He needs to micro those Colossi back, and so far so good.
The Zerglings are streaming in now, but the next round of Warpins is ready. The Zealots to the rescue, saving the Colossus. Another blink forward, picking off Overlords and pushing his way into the expansion. And
GG.
Lucira.
Yeah. Well, both, man. Lucira's in trouble. First is very happy. His performance in that game was superb. I loved his Phoenix control. You talked about several times, and I don't even think I can give enough credit. He was able to do so much damage to the Overlords. He hunted so well. I loved how he scouted with his Phoenix. Not only did he look for tech, but he looked for that Overlord cluster, and he found it. And as soon as he found it, it was like a monkey finding a clump of bananas in the tree. He was having a good day. He cleaned them up, and that cost Lucira so much money. He didn't have the attack force that gives Cross players so much trouble at that third base.
Lucira never had the room to breathe. First was suffocating him. Lucira was just trying to find the opening to get his tech ready to go into Broodlords to do something. But every single time, he was pressured by another force of the Protoss player. A great performance, map dominant here on Belcher Vestige. The Protoss player doing a great job. Early lead now for First in this group, taking the important 1-0.
Yeah, it's very important for him to take this lead.
You can actually see on screen Grubby getting ready in the booth.
Yeah.
He's in the same booth that Lucira, or he has place in the booth that Lucira was occupying currently. We have 4 of them here.
Exactly. You can even see the Epics Open. Coach Choya is over there looking on because he came here with them. We talked about it. He's living in the Epics Open house right now, training there. And, you know, something I want to mention about Grubby, just very brief before we go into our second game, I was actually overhearing you guys talking earlier, and you know, he wasn't even sure how long it's been since he's been in the house. He was like, I don't know, maybe it was a week or something, but it feels like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's just how it feels when you train in Korea. You actually you develop like a new whole set of skills you didn't even know you had. It's crazy.
That's so true. We actually saw each other a few days ago when he came over to my apartment for a few hours. We just grabbed something to eat. But yeah, it was like, when did we see each other? And to him, it feels like we've seen each other like a week or 2 weeks ago, because he was practicing so hard the entire time, and he kept me kind of updated about his progress. And he's going into this group and he's like, well, I really want to win. I prepared a lot. I was spending all the time practicing and analyzing my opponents. But if I lose today, it's also fine. He has a long-term strategy for Korea. He wants to win in the up and downs, but if he doesn't, that's completely okay with him, because he's going to stay here for a long time. He's going to stay here for at least 2 more months, and this is going to be very, very important. And also, of course, just make sure that his skill is increasing the entire time.
Exactly, man. And it's a great story. It's always a story if someone comes to play. But our next game, Byung versus Symbol, is going to be a Terran versus Zerg. And Symbol was on the up and up. He was looking extremely promising. He was kind of the underdog of GSL for a while, and suddenly he had his breakout performances overseas and in Korea. He was looking like maybe he was going to be the new GRG or something like that. But now he finds himself teamless. He's still wearing the tag, as we saw Symbol do, or Shine do yesterday. But he's up against Byung, who's also on the rise right now. And I feel like Symbol, even though he was looking dominant, I don't want to say he's like going through a recession, but he definitely does look a little bit less dominant recently, so it's hard to say who's going to come out on top here.
Symbol is especially good against Protoss players. He's one of those guys who will play a very unattractive style to watch, but a very safe style. In the late game, it's so difficult to make something happen against him because he doesn't give you any openings. Against Terran, he's also very strong. He was stopped by Zerg players in Code S last season, and in Code A, he faced Baby. We're going to talk about this in just a second, as now the game is about to load. We have Abyssal City being the map. Good for Symbol. A little bit tougher for Byung here. A very strong Casper player. I really want to see what he's going to be doing in this group today. He's for me a bit I don't want to call him the dark horse, but it's like I can't really judge how well he's going to do in the up and downs.
Yeah, it's tough, man. He's
strong.
He's strong, but we got to find out how strong. Is he strong enough to take out this group? Not going to be easy. As you said, the map Abyssal City is definitely a tough map for him. We're going into game number 2 here at the GSL Up and Downs for 2013's Season 1 of Code S. This is Group C. I am Wolf. With me is Caldor. Let's load up the map.